Hi, this is Baltimore GS from GSTwins.com. Today we're going to do a tutorial on how to change the oil in the GS500. The sample bikes today are an 01 and an 89, but the procedure is the same for all years. Changing the oil on GS only requires basic hand tools. You'll need a 10mm to remove the 3 nuts on the oil filter, and then depending on your year it'll be a 17mm or 21mm drain plug on the bottom of the engine. You also need a drain pan to drain the old oil into, and you'll probably need plenty of rags and some cleaner to clean up afterwards. Motorcycle oil is a highly debated subject, and you're going to find many opinions from many people. We'll go over a few of your options now. First, we'll start by showing you what you don't want to use. This is a modern day car oil, a 5W30. If you turn around and look on the back, you see an API seal here. On this API seal on the very bottom it says energy conserving. That means that this oil has friction modifiers in it which will wreak havoc on a wet clutch in any motorcycle. So you do not want to use this kind of oil. If you're paranoid about oil, you can start by using Suzuki 4-cylinder motorcycle oil. Factory certified, going to meet all your warranty specifications, no guesswork there. This is the oil that came in the bike, this is the oil that's recommended for the bike. But it's expensive. Another option is aftermarket motorcycle oil. This is Valvoline 10W40. It's certified for wet clutches, so you don't have any issues there, and it'll meet all the manufacturer specifications. This is the oil that I use on my bikes that are still under factory warranty. Now, getting into other options, I grew up riding dirt bikes back in the 90s, and I used 10W40 car oil in all of them and never had any problems with the wet clutches. If you look at the back at the API seal, you'll notice it doesn't say energy conserving or recourse conserving, so there are no friction modifiers in this. I'm not recommending you use that, but that is an oil that I used a lot of times and never had any problems. A better choice nowadays, if you want to go cheaper, is oil meant for diesel vehicles. A lot of diesel farm equipment has wet clutches like a motorcycle. If you look at the back, on the bottom of the API seal, you notice there's no friction modifiers. Rotella T actually meets the JASO, Japanese motorcycle standards. Another competing brand to the Rotella is the Dello. I've heard a lot of people use this oil with success. The one thing with it is it has more moly in it, so it is a little bit slipperier and may not be as good on the clutch. And then if you want to go cheap, there's the good old Walmart version of the heavy-duty motor oil. If you look at the back, there is no energy conserving, so it does meet the standards there. The main thing is the car oil won't stand up to the transmission. It might lubricate the engine okay, whereas these diesel oils, they will hold up to the transmission's shear force. So my best recommendation to you is do your own research and pick whatever oil you feel comfortable with. The most important thing is that you change it regularly. Just like oil, you have some choices when it comes to oil filters. This is a stock Suzuki filter and a stock Suzuki filter gasket. They're sold individually, so you have to buy both pieces if you want both pieces. This is an oil change kit from Napa. It comes with the filter and the gasket. I found the gaskets in the aftermarket kits tend to be lower quality and don't fit quite right. You may want to reuse your Suzuki gasket if it's in good shape, but if it looks kind of rough, go ahead and replace it. If you don't have a Suzuki dealer in your area, but you do have a Napa, the Napa part number is PS4931. Before we get started, let's show you what you're going to be working with an engine that's not installed in the bike. These 3 nuts here hold on the oil filter cover. Then this bolt on the bottom is your drain plug. You're going to remove that so the oil comes out. Then you're going to remove this cover to change your oil filter. We'll start our oil change by starting the bike to warm it up. That'll allow the oil to flow more freely and get more gunk out of the engine. If this is your first time changing oil on anything, you may want to skip this step so you're not working with hot parts. Locate the drain plug on the bottom of your engine and use your socket and ratchet to break it loose. With the drain plug broken loose, slide your drain pan underneath the engine and remove the drain plug. Now remember, if you heat up your engine, this oil coming out is going to be hot. Be careful not to drop the drain plug because you might lose the crush washer. So you definitely want to have some rags ready. Once the oil's drained thoroughly, you want to reinsert your drain plug. Make sure your crush washer is still there if you're reusing it. If the drain plug figure tight, you want to go ahead and tighten it down with your ratchet. Remember that you're bolting into aluminum, so you don't want to go too hard. If you have a torque wrench, torque it to about 17 foot-pounds. Now we'll turn our attention to the oil filter, which is under these three 10mm nuts. You want to have your drain pan ready because oil will start leaking out as soon as you loosen these up. Just ignore the shaky exhaust. This is only a parts break. There's a spring behind this cover that's going to push out as you loosen these nuts. Once the last nut's removed, the cover will come off. Underneath the cover is your oil filter. With your oil filter cover removed, you can inspect the old O-ring. If the O-ring's still soft and pliable, you can reuse it. Since I have a new O-ring, I'm going to go ahead and change this. Just pry the old O-ring out. And I like to use a little bit of grease to help hold the new O-ring in place. You don't want this O-ring to slip out when you're putting on your engine, because this is what actually seals the oil in at the oil filter. If this O-ring's not installed properly, all your oil is going to leak out and you're going to end up ruining your engine. Take a little oil and lubricate this O-ring and install your new filter. You have to push a little bit to get it seated. Now reinstall your filter cover, being careful that this gasket does not slip out. You're going to have to keep pressure on it to compress the spring while you get the nuts started. With the nuts figure tight, you want to go ahead and snug them down. This is a very low torque application, so you don't want to go very hard or you can break the studs. Remember, the longer your ratchet is, the more force you're applying. So if you're using a small ratchet like this, you can hold it short like this so you're not applying as much torque. It doesn't take much to seat these. We see a lot of posts in the GS Twins forum from members that over-torque these nuts and end up breaking the studs or stripping out their engine case. If you're concerned that you're going to over-torque it, get yourself an inch-pound torque wrench and torque them to about 60 inch-pounds. If your bike's equipped with an aftermarket exhaust system, you might run into some clearance issues when it comes to changing the oil filter. This 01 GS is equipped with the Yoshimura full exhaust system, and as you can see, it's going right over top of the oil filter cover. So it's going to require a couple special tools to begin with. I'm going to have to add an extension onto my socket, and I'm also going to need a wrench to get to this bottom 10mm. With the 3 cap nuts removed, you're going to remove the oil filter cover just like before. Now the problem is going to be getting the oil filter out because it hits the exhaust pipes. In order to gain the clearance we need for the oil filter, we need to get the exhaust out of the way. The proper way to do this would be to remove the 4 bolts that hold the headers to the engine and lower the exhaust down. The problem there, though, is you have to change your exhaust gaskets every time you change the oil. An alternative method that isn't recommended but does work is to remove the bolt that holds the can on the back and then have a partner gently push down on the pipes to give you enough clearance to remove the filter. You want to be careful not to push too hard or else you can break the head. If the O-ring moves on your new filter, have your helper push down on the exhaust again so you can slide it back in. With the new filter installed, reinstall your oil filter cover, being careful not to pinch the gasket. After the new oil filter has been inserted in the engine, go ahead and reattach the exhaust. With your nuts finger tight, go ahead and torque them down. Once you have everything tight, go ahead and clean off all the old oil residue. Now it's time to add the oil of your choice to the engine. The GS holds about 3 quarts of oil. I like to buy my oil in gallon jugs, and that way I have extra oil left over to top off between oil changes. You want to start by adding a little less than 3 quarts and then work our way up to full. With a little less than 3 quarts installed, remove your funnel and loosely install your dipstick. At this point, the oil has been circulated through the engine and into the oil filter, so you can't get an accurate reading on your dipstick. You have to start the engine and then you can check the dipstick. Watch to make sure that your red oil light indicator here goes out. With the oil circulated through the engine, you go ahead and check the oil level on the dipstick. There's some manuals say to check it while it's on the center stand. I prefer to sit it upright, remove the dipstick, clean it off, and set it back in, but don't screw it, and you can check the level. Right now this one's a little bit low. So just add extra oil and keep checking it until you get to the proper level. Once your oil level is set, make sure your dipstick's tight and start the engine and run it to check for leaks. You may see some smoke coming from the exhaust. This is normal because you probably have some residue left over on it, but you want to look for oil dripping. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. For more great GS500 info, visit gstwin.com.